My mother used me for years while favoring my brother. I drove 4 hours every time she needed me. But when I discovered she's leaving everything to him and her will, I cut contact and now he has to care for her alone. I'm 38 years old. I work in accounting, and for most of my adult life, I've been the son they call when something breaks, when something needs to be paid, when they need someone to drive 4 hours to change a light bulb. My mother, Helen, lives in a retirement community about 3.5 hours from my house, like 4 if there's traffic, and I'm the one who's always there for her. Well, I was. Because what I discovered about a year ago basically made all that sacrifice, all those hours on the road, all that money I spent, feel like a cruel joke. And the thing is, my brother Dylan lives literally 10 minutes from her, but guess who's never available to help? Yeah, exactly. Let me go back a bit so you understand how we got here. My parents got divorced when I was about 15. Dylan was 11. It was one of those ugly divorces where basically my father disappeared from our lives and my mom was left alone raising us. Me, being the oldest, I guess I developed this really strong sense of responsibility. You know, like I had to be the man of the house or something, even though nobody directly asked me to. My mother worked 2 jobs for a while. I took care of Dylan after school, made sure he did his homework, that kind of thing. Dylan was always more relaxed about everything, let's say. He never really cared much about getting good grades, never really cared about putting much effort into anything. Years went by. I went to college, got a decent job, married Jennifer 12 years ago now. We moved for my job to where we are now, which is a bigger city with better opportunities. Dylan, on the other hand, stayed in the same city where we grew up. He tried going to community college for a while, dropped out, had several jobs that never lasted more than a few months, and basically never left there. My mother retired about 7 years ago and moved to this retirement community that was about 20 minutes from where Dylan was living at the time. I thought, perfect. Now, Dylan can be there for her. I can relax a bit with all the responsibility. But no, things didn't work out that way at all. The calls started. At first it was like once a month, then every 2 weeks, then weekly. Mom needed help with something internet-related. Mom needed someone to take her to the doctor because she didn't like driving on the highway. Mom needed help fixing I don't know what in her apartment. And every time I asked, "Hey Mom, can't Dylan help you with that?" she had a different excuse. That Dylan was busy with work, that Dylan wasn't feeling well, that Dylan had his own problems. Literally, the guy lived 10 minutes away, and I was driving almost 4 hours every time she needed something. And it wasn't just the time, it was the money too. My mother had her pension and Social Security. She should have been fine financially, nothing luxurious but comfortable. But I started noticing she was always short on money. She'd call me saying she needed help paying the cable bill, or she needed money for a doctor's copay, or her car needed urgent repairs. I'd send her the money, obviously, because she's my mother. What else was I going to do? But it started being too frequent. Like every month there was something. Jennifer started worrying because we were basically subsidizing my mother's life on top of maintaining our own household and saving for our 2 kids' college. One day, about 3 years ago, I went to visit my mother to help her with something. I think it was to take her to an eye doctor appointment. While I was there, Dylan showed up. He needed money for rent, said he'd had a tough month at work. My mother, without even thinking twice, pulled out her checkbook and wrote him a check for $800. $800. I just stood there watching the scene. Like, seriously? This is the same woman who had called me 2 weeks earlier asking for $200 because she needed to fix her washing machine. When Dylan left, I asked my mother, "Mom, how often are you giving Dylan money?" She got super defensive. Told me that wasn't my business, that Dylan was her son too, and she could help him if she wanted. But the thing is, it wasn't occasional. I started paying more attention, and basically Dylan was going to ask her for money like every 2 or 3 weeks. For rent, for gas, to pay some debt. There was always something. And I was there, sending money to my mother because she told me she didn't have enough for her own expenses, and it turns out she was giving all that money to Dylan. Can you believe it? I was literally working overtime to be able to send extra money to my mother, and she was passing it directly to my brother who lived next door and did nothing to help her. The worst part was how she talked about the 2 of us. When Dylan did literally the bare minimum, like stop by to visit her for 20 minutes, she talked about him like he was son of the year. Oh, Dylan is so thoughtful. Dylan came to see me today, Dylan. Brought me flowers. Flowers he probably bought with the money she'd given him the week before, but whatever. Meanwhile, I could drive 4 hours, spend the entire weekend fixing things in her apartment, take her grocery shopping, whatever, and it was like it wasn't anything special. It was expected. Like it was my obligation and that's it. Jennifer started noticing how all this was affecting me. She'd tell me, Robert, you need to set boundaries. This isn't fair to you or our family. And she was right. But I felt trapped in this moral obligation. Like she's my mother. How am I going to tell her no? Plus, the guilt was unbearable. Every time I thought about telling her I couldn't help with something, I'd imagine my mother alone, needing help, and I'd feel like the worst person in the world, even though I knew perfectly well that Dylan was there 10 minutes away and did nothing. And things came to a breaking point about a year and a half ago. I had just gotten home after, having driven to see my mother the previous weekend. I'd spent like $400 fixing her refrigerator, plus gas, plus the hotel, because it was too much to drive round trip in one day. I was literally exhausted, still recovering from the trip, when I get a call from Dylan. My brother, who almost never called me unless it was Christmas or my birthday, suddenly is calling me on a Tuesday night. I answer and he says, Hey bro, I need to ask you a favor. I'm in a financial bind and I was wondering if you could lend me like 1,000. The guy who never helped our mother, who lived practically next door to her, who constantly took money from her, was now asking me for $1,500. Something in me broke in that moment. I told him, Dylan, are you kidding me? Did you just ask me for $1,500? And he was there with his casual tone, like, yeah, bro, I had some unexpected expenses and I thought maybe you could help me out. I told him, you know what an unexpected expense is? Driving 4 hours every time mom needs something because you don't lift a finger to help her. Spending hundreds of dollars every month on things for mom while you take money from her. That's an unexpected expense. He got defensive immediately, told me I didn't understand his situation, that he also helped mom in his own way, blah blah blah. I told him, your way? Your way of helping is going to ask her for money every 2 weeks? Because that's what I see, Dylan. And now you come to ask me for money too. No, I'm not going to give you a single cent. I hung up the phone and I was shaking with anger. Jennifer came and hugged me, told me I'd done the right thing, that it was about time I set boundaries. But I felt bad anyway, because that's how I am, always feeling guilty. After that call, I started making small changes. I no longer answered immediately when my mother called or texted. I'd wait a few hours, sometimes a day. I started saying I couldn't come certain weekends, because I had plans with my family. They weren't huge boundaries, but for me they felt giant because I'd spent decades being the son who always said yes. My mother noticed the change, obviously. She started making passive-aggressive comments about how I was so busy now, how I no longer had time for my poor old mother. Each comment was like a dagger of guilt, but Jennifer kept me firm, reminded me I also had a right to my own life. Then something happened that changed everything. Sharon, one of my mother's friends from the retirement community, called me one day. She and I had always gotten along well. She was one of those sweet ladies who treats you like you're her own son. She says, Robert, I need to talk to you about something important. Can you talk now? I told her yes. Sure. And what she told me literally left me frozen. She says, Look, I don't know if I should tell you this, but your mother has been talking with several of us about her will and estate planning. She says I'm going to leave everything to Dylan because you're doing well financially, and Dylan needs it more. I thought you should know. I sat there in my office, completely in shock. Everything was going to Dylan. The same Dylan who never did anything for her, who constantly took money from her, who lived 10 minutes away and didn't visit unless he needed something. And me, who had sacrificed time, money, energy, weekends with my family, all to be there for her, was going to get nothing, zero. I thanked Sharon for telling me and hung up. I think I sat staring at my office wall for like 20 minutes, trying to process what I'd just heard. Jennifer noticed something was wrong as soon as I got home that night. I told her everything, and she was furious, angrier than me even. She told me, "You have to confront her, Robert. You have to tell her you know, and that this isn't right." But I didn't know if I wanted to do it, because part of me didn't want to believe it was true. You know, like, maybe Sharon had misunderstood or something, but the more I thought about it, the more sense it made. My mother had always favored Dylan, always excused his behavior, always acted like he needed more protection, more help, more everything. It took me about 2 weeks to gather the courage to confront her. I drove to her place on a Saturday, didn't even tell her I was coming, just showed up. When she opened the door, she looked surprised, but happy to see me. We went inside. She started offering me coffee and cookies, and I just blurted out, "Mom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Is it true you're planning to leave your entire will to Dylan?" Her face changed immediately. She turned pale and then red. She asked me who had told me that, and I said that didn't matter. I just needed to know if it was true. She was quiet for a long moment, and then admitted, yes, it was true. She started explaining to me that it wasn't anything personal against me, that she knew it was doing well, that I had a good job and a stable family, while Dylan needed more help. Dylan didn't have the same advantages I did. Dylan needed that financial support. I told her, "Mom, do you realize what you're saying? You're saying that because I'm responsible, because I worked hard, because I built a stable life, I'm going to be punished. While Dylan, who has never done anything but take from you, is going to be rewarded." She got defensive, told me I didn't understand, that as a mother, she had to take care of all her children in the way she thought was best. I told her, "You know how much money I've spent on you in the last 5 years? Do you know how many hours I've driven? How many weekends I've sacrificed with my family to be there for you? And all this time, Dylan has been taking money from you and doing the bare minimum, and somehow he's the one who needs more." She tried to interrupt me, but I continued. I told her, "And you know what's the worst part of all this? Mom, it's not the money. It's that you made me feel it was my obligation to take care of you, that it was the right thing to do. While all this time, deep down, you knew you didn't really value what I was doing." The conversation got ugly. She started crying, saying I was being cruel, that she only wanted the best for both sons. I told her if that's what she wanted, then fine. It was her money and her decision. But from that moment on, things were going to change. I was no longer going to be the son she could call every time she needed something. I was no longer going to send her money for her to pass on to Dylan. I was no longer going to sacrifice my time and my family for someone who clearly didn't appreciate what I did. I left her apartment with her still crying, and I drove the 4 hours back home, feeling a weird mix of relief and guilt. I kept my word. When she called, I didn't answer immediately. When she asked for help with something, I told her I couldn't, to ask Dylan. When I asked me for money, I told her I didn't have extra to give her. The first time I told her I couldn't send her money for I don't know what thing. She couldn't believe it. She said, "But Robert, you always help me. What happened?" I told her, "Mom, I have to think about my own family now. I'm sure Dylan can help you." I could hear the surprise in her voice, but I didn't let myself feel guilty. Well, I tried not to feel guilty, because obviously the guilt was there anyway. About a month after I set these boundaries, I get a call from my aunt, Dorothy, my mother's sister. She tells me, "Robert, I have to talk to you. Your mother has been telling me things about you that don't add up." Apparently, my mother had been telling the whole family that I had abandoned her, that I didn't want to know anything about her anymore, that I'd become selfish and cruel. Dorothy told me she knew what I was like and that she knew there had to be more to the story. I told her everything. Absolutely everything. From the years of running to help her, the money I'd spent, the favoritism toward Dylan, the will, everything. Dorothy was outraged. She told me she had no idea about everything I'd been doing, that my mother only talked about how wonderful Dylan was, but never mentioned everything I did. She told me she was going to talk to other family members because this wasn't right. I told her I didn't want to cause family drama, but she insisted the truth had to come out. And, well, it came out. Dorothy started talking to other relatives, and I, on Jennifer's recommendation, sent several of them screenshots of text messages and emails that proved everything I'd been doing for my mother through the years, all the requests for money, all the times I'd driven to help her. The narrative started to change. Family members started to understand it wasn't that I had abandoned my mother, but that I had set healthy boundaries after years of being exploited. Some called me to apologize for having believed what my mother told them without hearing my side. Others directly confronted my mother, asked her why she had lied about me when clearly I had been there for her more than anyone. Dylan also got his share. Several uncles and cousins asked him why he, living 10 minutes away, never helped but was always asking for money. Dylan tried to do damage control, called several family members trying to paint the situation differently, saying he did help Mom in other ways, that it wasn't fair everyone was attacking him. But by that point there was too much evidence to the contrary. My mother also tried to defend herself, but it became clear she had been manipulating the situation, making me out to be the bad son, when in reality I had been the only one there for her consistently. The truth was, she had taken me completely for granted, had assumed I would always be there, no matter how she treated me or who she favored. I made the decision to cut contact completely with both my mother and Dylan. It was one of the hardest decisions of my life, because no matter how much they'd hurt me, she was still my mother, he was still my brother. But Jennifer helped me see it was necessary, that I needed to protect my own mental health and my own family. My kids deserved to have a father who wasn't constantly stressed and resentful because of toxic family dynamics. My wife deserved a husband who was present and not always worried about problems he couldn't solve. The guilt haunted me for months after cutting contact. I'd wake up at night worrying, what if something happens to my mother? What if she really needs help? Jennifer reminded me those were the same manipulation tactics my mother had used for years, making me feel responsible for everything. But still, the guilt was there. To help me with that, I decided to do one thing. I set up an automatic monthly transfer to my mother's account, like $200, enough to help with her basic expenses if she needed them. I made it anonymous, through the bank, so she received the money but couldn't use it as a way to manipulate me or as an excuse to contact me. It's been about 8 months since I cut contact. My mother has tried to contact me several times, mainly text messages telling me she misses me, that she's been thinking about what happened, that she wants to talk. I haven't responded. Dylan sent me a message a few months ago, basically complaining that now he had to take care of everything with Mom and that it was unfair. I left him on read and then blocked him. The irony isn't lost on anyone. Now he's experiencing what I lived through for years. The difference is, he lives 10 minutes away, not 4 hours. Some family members have asked me if I'll ever forgive my mother, if we'll ever reconcile. The truth is, I don't know. I don't know if I can forgive years of being taken for granted, years of obvious favoritism. The revelation of the will that basically confirmed everything I did never really mattered to her. Maybe, someday, when there's more distance from all this, when I don't feel so much anger every time I think about it. But for now, I'm focused on my own family, on being the best husband and father I can be, on not repeating the patterns I learned. The craziest thing is that since I cut contact, my life has improved significantly. I have more time with Jennifer and the kids. I'm not constantly stressed about my mother's next emergency. I'm not spending hundreds of dollars every month on problems that weren't really my problems. My kids have a more present, happier father. Jennifer tells me I look 10 years younger, that it's like I took a huge weight off my shoulders. And she's right, that's exactly what it feels like. The other day, my oldest son, he's 14 now, asked me why we don't visit Grandma anymore. I explained to him, in age-appropriate terms, that sometimes family relationships are complicated and it's okay to put distance when someone doesn't treat you well, even if they're family. He said, "It's okay, Dad, I understand." And then he hugged me. That hug meant more to me than all the years of being the perfect son for a mother who never appreciated it. I guess that's enough for now.